May 11th, 1943, Cape Bon Peninsula, Tunisia. The world is reduced to two sounds, the high-velocity snap of incoming rounds and the grinding squeal of tank treads on rock. Obergefreiter Carl Schmidt, 20 years old, presses his face into the hot sand, tasting salt and cordite. He is deaf in one ear from a Nebelwerfer rocket that landed too close to his own trench 3 days ago. His unit, a depleted element of the 15th Panzer Division, is finished. The sky, once owned by Messerschmitts, is now a hunting ground for American P-40 Warhawks. Sie sind da, a voice cries. The Amis. Carl risks a look. Cresting the dusty ridge isn't a German Panzer IV. It's an M4 Sherman, squat and olive drab, its 75mm main gun traversing toward their position. A .30 caliber machine gun barks from the hull, kicking up dirt just meters away. The thump-thump-thump of the heavy gun is a death knell. His lieutenant, a gaunt man with a face like dried leather, stands up slowly, his hands raised. He has no helmet. Nicht schießen, wir ergeben uns. Don't shoot, we surrender. Carl feels a strange, cold emptiness. He lets his Kar 98K rifle, its wooden stock cracked, its bolt jammed with grit, fall from his grasp. This is it. The end of the Deutsches Afrikakoppers. American GIs move in, cautious but quick. They are not the monsters from the newsreels. They are young, just like him, but their uniforms are clean, their faces well-fed. One of them, chewing gum incessantly, prods Carl with the muzzle of his M1 Garand. Up, Kraut, get moving. The word Kraut stings, but the tone is not murderous. It's efficient. As Carl is marched onto a dusty track with hundreds, then thousands, of other German and Italian soldiers, the great surrender of Heeresgruppe Afrika is complete. He is no longer a soldier. He is a Kriegsgefangener, a prisoner of war. He looks back at the burning desert, then forward toward the American trucks. He assumes he will be sent to a camp in Egypt, perhaps England. He cannot possibly imagine where he is actually going. June 14, 1943, the cargo hold of a Liberty ship, North Atlantic. The world has shrunk to the dimensions of this steel box, shared with 2,000 other men. The air is foul, a thick, humid mixture of sweat, vomit, and bilge. For Carl Schmidt, the Kriegsgefangener number pinned to his ragged tunic is his only identity. He sits with his back pressed against the cold, sweating hull, his knees drawn up. Above the rhythmic thump of the sea against the bow is a constant, dull metronome. This is the true surrender. Not the moment he dropped his rifle in the Tunisian sand, but this. Trapped in the dark, rocked by an ocean he cannot see, his fate entirely in the hands of his enemy. Rumors are the only currency. We are going to Canada, a man from the Luftwaffe insists, his voice hollow in the gloom. My cousin worked in a lumber mill there before the war. They will make us cut trees in the snow. You are wrong, mutters a veteran Feldwebel, his arm in a crude sling. It is England. They will put us in the mines. Payback for the Blitz. Carl listens, but his mind is on the vibration beneath his feet. He knows this sound. It is the distant pulse of another ship's screw, a destroyer, an escort. Suddenly, a series of sharp, metallic pings echo through the hull, the sound of active ASDIC, the Allied sonar. Men jolt awake. Was ist das? U-boot, a voice whispers, filled with a terrible, conflicting dread. The ship's alarm bell clangs, a violent, piercing sound. Above deck, Carl hears the heavy thump, thump, thump of the 4-inch deck gun firing, followed by the deeper, resonant whoomp of a depth charge detonating somewhere in the deep. The explosion is a physical blow, a fist punching the hull, throwing men from their tiered bunks. The lights go out. In the pitch black, there is only screaming. Carl feels a sudden, absurd rush of loyalty. He finds himself silently cheering for the U-boat. Hit them. Sink this transport. Then, just as quickly, the terror of drowning in a locked steel box extinguishes the thought. He is trapped between two loyalties, belonging to neither. The hunt lasts for an hour. More whoops. Rattle their teeth, but they grow more distant. Finally, the slow, steady thrum of the ship's own engine reasserts itself. The tension breaks, leaving the men shaking and silent. They are not his countrymen coming to save him. They are his countrymen trying to kill him, unaware that he is the cargo. Days later, the engine's rhythm changes. The constant rolling of the high seas subsides. The hatch above is thrown open, flooding the hold with blinding pure sunlight. A voice barks in English. "On your feet. All prisoners. Deckside now." Blinking, skeletal, Carl climbs the ladder. As his eyes adjust, he sees it. It is not the gray, bombed-out coast of England. It is a sprawling city, untouched by war, dominated by a towering green-bronze statue of a woman holding a torch. He is in New York Harbor, June 21st, 1943, a Pullman-style passenger car, crossing Pennsylvania. The clack, 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 clack of the steel wheels on the rails is a hypnotic, relentless rhythm. Carl Schmidt sits on a plush-covered seat, watching a world he cannot comprehend slide past the glass. After processing at Camp Shanks, where he was deloused with DDT powder, given a medical inspection, and issued 2 sets of blue denim work clothes with a large white PW stenciled on the back and trousers, he was marched onto this train. He expected a cattle car. He found himself in a carriage more comfortable than any he had ever ridden in Germany, even in peacetime. A U.S. Army guard, a man older than his father, sits at the end of the car, a pump-action shotgun resting across his knees. He's not pointing it. He's reading a copy of the Saturday Evening Post. Carl looks out the window. He sees a farm, a massive red barn, perfectly painted, a field of shimmering green, a new model John Deere tractor pulling a plow. There are no shell craters, no burned-out husks of tanks. In the yard, a woman hangs white sheets on a line. "Wo sind die Ruinen?" The Feldwebel from the bunk next to him murmurs, his voice rough. "Where are the ruins?" Carl says nothing. He remembers the newsreels from Dr. Goebbels. New York in flames, Washington in panic, the American populace starving. He turns his head and looks down the car. A different guard is handing out lunch. Not hardtack and thin soup. It is a thick sandwich of white bread with ham and cheese, a piece of fruit, a paper cup of hot, sweet coffee. The prisoners eat in a state of stunned, almost shamed silence. This is more food than they received in a day in Tunisia. It is more food than their families are receiving in a week back in Hamburg or Cologne. The train rolls on. For 3 days, it crosses Ohio, Indiana, Illinois. It stops in Chicago, a city of steel and glass that makes Berlin look provincial. They are transferred to another train. This one heads west. The cities stop. The green forests and small farms give way to a sea of grass, an ocean of land that seems to have no end. Nebraska, Wyoming. The sky is bigger here. The sheer overwhelming scale of the continent is a psychological weapon. They are not just prisoners. They are atoms, lost in an empire of resources. The war, which in Europe was a knife fight in a burning room, feels impossibly distant. This country isn't bleeding. It is barely inconvenienced. Finally, the train's brakes hiss and groan. The clack-clack slows to a stop. The door slides open, letting in a blast of dry, hot air that smells of sage and dust. "All right, boys, end of the line," the guard says, standing up. "Welcome to Idaho." Carl steps down onto the gravel, squinting against a sun that feels as brutal as Africa's. Before him is nothing. A vast high desert plain, brown and empty, stretching to a line of distant jagged mountains. In the middle of this emptiness sits a sprawling geometric city of black tar paper barracks, surrounded by barbed wire and watchtowers. August 5th, 1944, Camp Rupert, Idaho. The 10 a.m. sun is already a physical weight, pressing down on the black tar paper roofs and radiating heat in visible waves. The dust is the true enemy now. It's not the coarse sand of Tunisia. It's a fine, pale, alkaline powder that coats the tongue and stings the eyes. Carl Schmitt's world has shrunk to Barracks 14, the mess hall, and the double-ringed barbed wire fence. His war is over. He is thousands of miles from the new front in Normandy, which he only hears about through vetted camp newspapers and the triumphant broadcasts piped over the camp loudspeakers. He sits on his cot, mending a tear in his PW shirt. Beside him, Feldwebel Brandt, the veteran from the transport ship, is carving a small bird from a piece of scrap pine. The boredom is a sickness, a mental rust. The barracks door swings open, scraping on the dusty floor. A new figure stands there, an American captain, his garrison cap tucked neatly under his arm, accompanied by a Sonderführer, a German-American translator. Achtung! The translator barks, his accent more Milwaukee than Berlin. Hinsetzen. The men find their bunks. The captain, a man named Davis, speaks, his voice calm and all business. The translator relays the message. The United States is experiencing a severe manpower shortage. The translator begins. Every able-bodied American man is fighting your brothers in Europe or the Japanese in the Pacific. Carl exchanges a cynical look with Brandt. Here it comes. The forced labor, the mines. The local farmers, the translator continues, cannot find men to harvest their crops. The potatoes, the sugar beets, the apples, they will rot in the fields if they are not picked. He pauses, letting the image sink in. Food, rotting. To men who are starving in Africa, it is a sin. Under Article 27 of the Geneva Convention, the captain says, holding up a small booklet, enlisted prisoners of war may be utilized for agricultural labor. This is voluntary. We cannot force you. A murmur ripples through the barracks. Voluntary? You will be housed in smaller temporary satellite camps near the farms, the translator says. You will work an 8-hour day. You will be fed 3 hot meals a day. You will be guarded, and you will be paid. The barracks goes utterly silent. Carl is sure he has misheard. Basalt? Paid? The translator clarifies, as if sensing the disbelief. The farmer pays the U.S. Treasury the local rate for a civilian worker. From that, the government pays you. You will receive 80 cents per day, paid in canteen scrip. 80 cents. It's an abstraction, but the next words are not. This scrip can be used at the camp canteen to purchase soap, razor blades, tobacco, chocolate, and Coca-Cola. A few men laugh, a dry, disbelieving sound. It has to be a trick, a propaganda joke. Pay the enemy to work? Provide him with luxuries while your own men are dying? The Americans are either fools or this is a lie. But Captain Davis is already posting a sign-up sheet. Work begins next week. This is your chance to leave the wire. Your choice. Carl looks at Brandt. Brandt looks at the dust motes dancing in the shaft of light. I do not understand them, Brandt whispers, but I would rather work than rot. Carl Schmitt signs his name. August 12th, 1944, 0530 hours, near Rupert, Idaho. The air is thin and cold, carrying the sharp scent of sagebrush. The pre-dawn sky is a deep, star-pricked indigo. Carl Schmitt shivers, his breath pluming. He stands in a loose formation as a U.S. Army sergeant, his face illuminated by the headlamps of a CCKW-2 1-2-ton truck, reads off a list of names. Schmitt, Brandt, Hartmann. Carl climbs over the tailgate, his boots thudding on the metal bed. He and 30 other prisoners huddle together as the truck lurches to life. 2 guards, both armed with M1 rifles, climb in last, sitting by the tailgate. Their expressions are bored. The truck rumbles past the watchtowers, past the main gate of Camp Rupert. The squeal of the gate opening is the first sound of freedom Carl has heard in over a year. It's a terrifying, exhilarating sensation. They are outside the wire. They drive through the sleeping town of Rupert. A lone civilian, a milkman, stops his Divco truck to watch them pass, his face a mask of hard curiosity. Carl feels the large white PW on his back like a brand. This is the enemy's homeland. After 20 minutes, the truck turns off the paved road onto a dirt track, kicking up a plume of pale dust. It stops at the edge of a vast, dark, geometric landscape. As the sun begins to creep over the Sawtooth Mountains, the landscape resolves. It is an orchard. Thousands of trees, organized in perfect endless rows laden with fruit. A civilian is waiting for them. He is not a soldier. He wears denim overalls and a worn straw hat, his face burned dark by the sun. He looks at the prisoners, not with hate, but with a weary, appraising eye. He needs them. "All right," the sergeant barks, hopping down. "This is Mr. Hansen. This is his farm. You will work from 0600 to 1500 with 1 hour for lunch. You will not smoke near the barns. You will not speak to Mrs. Hansen. You will not attempt to leave. Stay in the rows we assign you. We'll be posted at the perimeter. Verstehen?" The prisoners nod. "We understand." Mr. Hansen gestures wordlessly to a stack of wooden ladders and canvas picking bags. He picks up a bag, slings it over his shoulder, and walks to the nearest tree. He speaks, his voice rough, and the camp translator steps in. He says the fruit is ripe. Do not pull the branch. You twist the apple up, the translator demonstrates, like this, until the stem snaps. Do not bruise them. Bruised fruit rots the crate. Carl slings a bag over his shoulder. The canvas is stiff, the leather strap cold. He approaches a tree. It is heavy with deep red apples, glowing in the first light. He reaches out, his hand, a hand trained to clean a rifle, prime a grenade, and dig a foxhole, closes around the fruit. He twists. The apple comes free with a clean snap. He looks at it. It's perfect, heavy, cool, and real. He can smell it. He is overcome by a sudden, powerful urge to bite it. He glances at the guard who is already lighting a cigarette, his rifle leaned against the truck's fender. He is not in a labor pit. He is not in a mine. He is in a garden. And he is being paid 80 cents a day to harvest it. The sheer profound absurdity of the situation hits him like a physical blow. Type continue to generate the next section. August 17th, 1944, 14 hours, the Hansen Orchard. The thud, thud, thud of apples dropping into the canvas bag has become the rhythm of Carl Schmitt's life. He moves the ladder with practiced efficiency. His hands, once calloused by a rifle's bolt and an entrenching tool, are now stained with apple juice, his fingernails packed with Idaho dirt. The heat is dry, a blanket over the orchard. The guards, mostly older men from the local area, part of the service command, sit under the shade of a large poplar, their rifles stacked. They are not prison guards. They are babysitters for an enemy army. Mr. Hansen, the farmer, walks the rows. He does not speak. He communicates with gestures. He stops where Brandt has emptied a bag too quickly, bruising the fruit. Hansen shakes his head, picks up 2 apples, and gently, almost respectfully, places them in the wooden crate. Langsam, he says, one of the few German words he knows. Slowly. Brandt nods, his face impassive, but his technique changes. This is not a battle of wills. It is a shared, unspoken contract. We will save your crop. You will treat us like men. At noon, a U.S. Army truck rumbles up the dirt track. The prisoners stop, wiping sweat from their foreheads. Two GIs hop out of the back and begin unloading M1937 Mermite, insulated food containers. Line up, a guard calls. No pushing. Carl gets in line, his stomach aching with a hunger born of labor, not starvation. He's handed a steel tray. A GI, his sleeves rolled up, scoops a massive ladle of thick beef stew. It's rich with potatoes, carrots, and onions. Next, 2 thick slices of white bread and a cube of yellow butter. Finally, a tin cup of steaming black coffee, already sweetened. Carl sits with Brandt under a tree. They eat in silence for a full minute. "This is not prisoner food," Brandt says, his voice low. He spears a piece of beef. This is better than Wehrmacht officer rations." "It is to make us work," Carl replies, soaking the last of the stew with his bread. "They could make us work with the rifle," Brandt counters, nodding toward the guards. "They do not. They use this." He holds up the tin cup. "This is how they fight. It is strange." At 15 sacks, the whistle blows. The workday is over. They load the last of the crates, are counted, and climb back into the truck. The ride back to the satellite camp is quiet. The men are tired, but it is a clean, physical exhaustion, not the soul-deep rot of the main camp. That evening is payday. The prisoners line up inside their barracks. A clerk sits at a folding table. "Schmidt, Carl?" Carl steps forward. The clerk consults a ledger, then slides a small, perforated book of paper coupons across the table. 10 days' work, $8. It feels like paper, nothing more. But then, the camp canteen opens. Carl walks in. It is a small wooden shack, but the shelves are stocked. He sees tins of Lucky Strike and Chesterfield cigarettes, piles of shaving soap, writing tablets, and a box, open, filled with small brown paper-wrapped bars. He points. "Ein, bitte." The prisoner clerk, a man from Hamburg, nods. 20 cent. Carl tears a 20-cent coupon from his book and hands it over. In return, he is given a Hershey's milk chocolate bar. He takes it back to his bunk. He unwraps the foil. He hasn't seen, let alone tasted, real chocolate since 1940. He breaks off a piece and lets it melt on his tongue. It is overwhelmingly sweet, rich, and real. He thinks, with a sudden sharp ache, of his mother in Berlin, who is probably surviving on turnips and ersatz coffee. He, the prisoner, is living better than the civilians in the Reich. The Americans are not just defeating Germany. They are doing it with casual, unbelievable, decadent abundance. September 3rd, 1944. A sugar beet field near Twin Falls, Idaho. The apple harvest is done. The work has shifted. Now, Carl Schmidt's back screams in protest. The labor is brutal, different from the latter's. He stands in a row, the sun baking the cracked dirt. He uses a topping knife, a short, hooked blade, to sever the green tops from the beets. Thwack, thwack, thwack. Beside him, another prisoner grunts, using a spiked tool to lift the heavy, pale root from the soil. This is the work they were promised. Hard, unglamorous. But the terms of the contract remain unbroken. The Mermite cans arrive at noon, steaming with stew or chili. The water truck comes twice a day. The guards remain distant. One afternoon, the farmer's wife, a different farm, a different family, emerges from the small white farmhouse. She carries a large galvanized metal tub heavy with water and sets it on the edge of the field, 20 yards away. The guards watch her, impassive. She goes back inside. The farmer, a man named McGregor, jerks his thumb toward the tub. "Furjush," he grunts. Carl and Brandt approach it cautiously. It's not just water. It's filled with ice blocks, and floating among them are 24 green glass bottles of Coca-Cola, beaded with condensation. Carl pulls one out. It is so cold it hurts his hand. He pops the cap on the metal lip of the tub. He tastes it. It is sweet, fizzy, and cold, a shock to his system in the 100-degree heat. He looks at Brant, who stares into the bottle as if it contains a magic potion. "This," Brant says, searching for the word, "this is what they give their own soldiers." "And now us," Carl replies. "This is the true enemy. It is not the guard with his M1 rifle. It is the chocolate bar. It is the hot coffee. It is the bottle of ice-cold Coca-Cola." In Africa, they had been told the Americans were soft, a mongrel race of capitalists and gangsters, decadent and weak, their system on the verge of collapse. The propaganda posters showed them starving, their factories in ruins from U-boat attacks. The reality is a weapon more devastating than a division of tanks. The Americans are not starving. They are drowning in food. So much food, they will pay their enemies to harvest it. Their factories are not in ruins. They produce so much steel that they can afford to build thousands of ships, trucks, and these small, sweet, bottled luxuries. Carl has seen the local papers in the translator's office. He sees the maps. The Wehrmacht is retreating in France. The Red Army is devouring the Eastern Front. He knows objectively that the Reich is losing. But this casual, thoughtless wealth is what tells him the war is over. You cannot defeat a people who can afford to waste this much sugar on their prisoners. You cannot starve a nation whose farms stretch from one ocean to another untouched by a single bomb. The Reich is fighting for its life. America is fighting with its surplus. Carl finishes the Coke. It leaves a sweet taste in his mouth that feels exactly like defeat. May 9th, 1945. A potato field, Minidoka County, Idaho. The work is the same, but the world is gone. The sky is the same pale, enormous blue. The scent of tilled earth and sage is the same. But the Reich, the 1,000-year Reich, is finished. 2 days ago, a guard, a young new replacement who looked barely old enough to shave, had read the official bulletin to their translator. VE Day. Victory in Europe. The German High Command had signed an unconditional surrender at Rams. The war was over. Carl Schmidt stands up straight, his hands on his hips, his back aching from planting potato seed. He looks at the guard, who is not sitting under a tree. He is walking the rows with them, smoking, his M1 rifle slung casually over his shoulder, muzzle down. His name is Miller, and he'd lost a cousin at a place called Bastogne. There is no celebration. There is no relief. There is only a vast, hollow silence that has settled over the prisoners. They are the surviving soldiers of a dead nation. "Keep it moving, Schmidt," Miller says, his voice not unkind. "These spuds gotta be in by Friday." It is the final, surreal absurdity. The war is over, but the harvest is not. The farmers of Idaho, who still faced a critical labor shortage, had petitioned the government. The war was over, but the contracts were not. The U.S. Army, practical to the last, still had a crop to save and thousands of men to feed. So Carl continues to work. He plants potatoes for the enemy who has just vanquished him. That evening, back at the satellite camp, the mood is funereal. Men who had been ardent believers in the Endsieg final victory are now silent, staring at the barracks walls. Men who had hated the party are equally silent, consumed by a gnawing anxiety. "What happens now?" Brant whispers, lying on his bunk, staring at the tar paper ceiling. "We go home," Carl says, but the word home feels like a lie. Home is Berlin. Home is a city of ash, divided by the Russians and the Americans. "When?" Brant asks. "They still need us. This farmer, Hansen, he asked me today if I knew how to fix a tractor engine, a Fettsash diesel." "Did you?" I was a mechanic for the 15th Panzer, Brandt says, a ghost of a smile. Of course I did. A cold realization settles over Carl. They are no longer a threat. They are no longer the Afrika Korps. They are just labor. Skilled, cheap, efficient labor. The barbed wire, he understands, is no longer there to keep the Nazis in. It is there to keep the angry locals, the ones with gold stars in their windows, out. They are safe. They are well fed. And they are completely, utterly irrelevant. Carl looks at the $8 in scrip he has saved. It is the only thing he has earned in this war. He has an overwhelming desire to go to the canteen and buy every Hershey bar they have, to eat them until he is sick, just to feel something, anything, other than this profound, empty stillness.